Hello, everyone. Okay, so we're here to introduce our guests, Jess and Jorgen Pedersen, from college students, waiting tables, and from starting up in Carnegie Mellon University's Business Incubator to an acquisition by Sarcos Technology Robotics Corporation. Our guest speaker's journey is a testament to perseverance, innovation, and success.
Today, they'll be sharing their 20-year run of leading RE² Robotics, which has significantly contributed to Pittsburgh's tech landscape, especially the esteemed Robotics Row. They're not only industry pioneers, but also mentors eager to fuel the next generation of tech enthusiasts.
And now, we're excited to have our guest speakers here, Jess and Jorgen Pedersen.
Thank you for that introduction. That was wonderful. I'm going to turn this microphone over to the waiter. How's it work?
Yeah. So we can turn this into whatever you want it to be. So I'm looking forward to the questions. But we'll give you a little bit of background, maybe some personal background where we started. Maybe walk you 20 years is, we'd be here for a long time if we did the whole 20-year journey. So we'll walk you through the business, talk a little bit about, well, how did we make it 20 years? How did we, first survive, and then how did we thrive, as a business? So we can walk you through that. So first, maybe I'll start with a little personal, and then give it over to you to talk about your background. So I won't rewind too far. Maybe I'll only go back to high school. Fun fact: I went to the same high school as Kobe Bryant. I like to say that he told everyone, I went to the same high school as Jorgen, but I don't think that's how it went down. So grew up in Philadelphia, came out to Pittsburgh. Why did I come to Pittsburgh? Big shocker, robotics, Carnegie Mellon University. So I did my undergraduate there. If you ever want a blueprint on how to start your career in robotics, don't listen to me. Because it was a little rocky start. I started at Carnegie Mellon. Turns out if you don't take your finals, you can, they don't look favorably on that, and you can get kicked out of school for a little bit, like I did. So I came from Philly, I was in Pittsburgh, but instead of going back home, I said, I'm not going back home. So I supported myself as a waiter in Pittsburgh, had a little apartment, but it taught me perseverance and taught me grit. I learned a lot there. Taught me a lot of soft skills, how to work with a lot of different people who have, and many of them can be challenging, right, and have a lot of hard demands. I also learned that I don't want to be a waiter for the rest of my life. It had value, and I'm not saying anything about it, but it gave me motivation to go back to school. And I needed my own motivation to go back into engineering school. But I didn't go back to Carnegie Mellon. I went to Duquesne University for a while, and I learned programming. And because I was a waiter, I went into psychology. So I learned programming and psychology. But then as I was there doing the programming, I learned, this really is my passion. I love this. So I'm going to go back to Carnegie Mellon. I got back in by filling out a return from leave of absence form. Wasn't supposed to do that, but I got back in. I was started off as a mechanical engineer, realized, I don't understand how to spell half the words in thermodynamics, so I'm going to switch majors. I did that, went into electrical and computer engineering, and that's where I got my undergrad. Along the way, I spent most of my time out in the lab. Grades were not my thing, okay? If you ever want to look at, talk to that guy who's a straight A student, nope, not me. I was the guy out in the lab learning how to run the lathe and the mill and machine robotic parts or program a little board on how to make a robot do something. That was my passion. And that's what I did. I graduated, I worked for the university after graduating. Worked on, I see there's someone in the audience from Caterpillar. My very first project was with Caterpillar, where we were going to automate a big excavator. And I do have some stories there, but I already know I'm going to take up way too much time. I can talk incessantly.
Safe word.
Yeah.
Safe word.
So I'll bring that story back up later if people want it. But learned a lot through the university, joined a startup company, learned how to not run a robotics company by joining this startup company. I'm not going to mention the name of it, but I learned a lot on how to not operate a robotics company. So then formed RE Squared, but before we get into all those details, I will say along that journey too, I was going to go get a PhD in robotics. I realized I don't think I had the patience to spend that time to get a PhD. But I did take some classes, so I ended up getting, I was the very first Masters of Robotics at Carnegie Mellon University, simply by mistake, because I didn't want to keep going towards the PhD, and I convinced the dean that, see these classes here and this work I'm doing over here, let's make that be a program. And they did, and it turns out all of my colleagues that I was working with at the National Robotics Engineering Center, they jumped in too, and they got masters, and they turned it into an official program. So by mistake, that occurred. Before we get into the RE Squared, I'm going to hand it over to Jess, and maybe she'll give you a little bit of background about her.
I wish I had, that's such a cool story. My background is not that. It's kind of the antithesis of that, actually. So I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. I went to Penn Trafford High School, if anyone knows Westmoreland County, that's where I grew up. Went to Penn Trafford High School, went to Penn State. All I cared about was achievement and grades. I didn't care about learning anything, which I'm realizing now. I'm homeschooling my 2 kids, and I'm relearning everything that I learned back then. My goal was to graduate near the top of my class. I did that. Again, not retaining any information. Went to college, was in that mindset of achievement and not of actual learning. And so I studied something that I felt would be easy. So I studied employee relations, and at the time I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I graduated from college, from Penn State in 1992. I'm dating myself. And at that time, there was a bit of a recession. It was really hard to find jobs. So when I graduated, I ended up taking any job that I could get. And I was living on the West Coast at the time. And I took a job as a receptionist for a tech company. And it was my first job in a tech company. And from that point forward, I worked in tech companies my entire career. Because they recognized that I had writing skills, I had speaking skills, and instead of just answering the phones, I ended up doing all the marketing and public relations and going from one company to another. I worked for a software company, then a hardware company. Then I moved back to Pittsburgh. I worked for a software company where I was a marketing writer. And 5 years later, when I met Jorgen, I was the vice president of marketing for that company, and found I just stumbled into marketing. Just looking for a career path, and it found me. And so tech marketing became my jam. It was like the thing that I became good at. And when I met Jorgen, I was traveling all the time for my company and for my position, and he was telling me about this robotics startup and how, I'm like, yeah, robotics wasn't really even a thing when we met. There were maybe 2 other companies in Pittsburgh at the time, Red Zone and RE Squared and Seagrid, and that was about it. Is that right, Lou? Any other ones? Yeah, that was about it. And so I thought, I don't know what this robot thing is, but yeah, good on you. Way to go.
Yeah.
But then when we got married, he said, well, why don't you quit your job and come and work for me? And I thought, okay, well, I'll do that for a little bit, and then we'll start a family. And I thought at the age of 32, I had reached the pinnacle of my career, and I was done. So I'm like, okay, I'm done, VP of marketing. I'll do this with you for a little while, and then I'll just, change paths and be a stay-at-home mom. And that never really happened. So I'll let Jorgen pick up where I left off and about how we met and how we joined forces. But you can see very different personalities, right? Like I was like achievement, got to do it all right, perfectionist, and he was like, this is so fun. This is super fun. Let's do this.
Cool fact. I formed RE Squared on July 20th, 2001. Second cool fact. I met Jess on July 20th, 1 year later. Exactly, on the day. That's when you knew it was all going to work out. And what was cool is I founded RE Squared, we bootstrapped, we were, because we didn't really know what we were doing. Okay, total admission, we had no idea what we were doing. We just formed this company, we're going to work on really cool stuff. I was the tech guy, I had the mindset, because I hadn't met Jess yet, you just build this really cool stuff, and people are just going to call you and like, I want to buy that, and it's all going to be amazing and wonderful. Nope. I met Jess, like, it doesn't work that way, right? There's this thing called a business plan and marketing and a strategy, a go-to-market strategy. This is all foreign to the techie guy, right? That's why it worked, right? I had that tech background. I knew we could do anything, right? I learned business from Jess, and Jess learned robotics from me. And we were open-minded and willing to listen to one another and learn, and not think, oh, I know, I know what to do. Just listen. No, we listened to each other, and it was that openness and that willingness to hear each other that allowed the company to move forward. So we started off, and we didn't really know what we were doing. And it wasn't really until 4 years later that we really got a handle on it. There's a program called the Small Business Innovation Research Grant Program. And this is when the Iraq and Afghanistan wars were going on, and there was robots being deployed for the first time to deal with roadside bombs and so forth. And we wanted to help save lives, right? We wanted to help provide better technology out there to help save lives so people didn't put themselves into harm's way. So we got this first SBIR, and it was $150,000, and it was a lot of money to us, and it was for outdoor mobile manipulation, right? So putting robotic arms on things that move through the world outside didn't really exist. This was like not a normal thing, right? Everything was in the factory. It was just robotic arms in factories moving things from A to B really fast. This was a new concept. We're like, yeah, that sounds really hard and challenging and incredibly challenging to run a business. Let's do that. So we won this SBIR, then we won another one, and then the phase 2 was like $730,000. And this is a big deal. And then you won another one, another $730,000. And we bootstrapped this business off of putting $1,000 in the bank, off of these contracts with the university, then with the Department of Defense. Next thing you know, we had millions of dollars of revenue, and we're profitable, and we're developing these new products for these new markets that no one had ever really thought of before. It was really exciting. It's really hard to summarize 20 years of building this cool stuff in a short amount of time. But I think what allowed us to succeed and start selling products, our first sale was 181 units to the Air Force EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal. If anyone saw the movie Hurt Locker, those robots that you saw, we made the robotic arms that went on those robots, right? And we sold our first batch of arms, and we got a taste that, we can really make a difference in the world by selling these products. And we were selling hundreds of these robotic arms when we finally, sold the business. But what allowed us to succeed along the way was listening to one another, but more importantly, listening to customers and making sure we were solving a real problem that needed to be solved, not just where I started, which was, hey, I'm this really smart guy, I can make these robots, would you like to buy one, right? That's what a lot of companies end up doing. And that's destined to most likely not work out, right? So it was that, hey, we're gonna solve a real problem. And oh, by the way, because we're listening not only to each other, but to our customers, we're going to pivot along the way. And it was those pivots where, hey, we're making these robots. Our biggest pivot was going from working on defense robots to commercial. In a very short time period, we went from 100% of our revenue came from defense to 50% was defense and 50% was commercial in multiple markets. Solar field construction. We did surgical robots. We did airport automation, baggage handling robots. We did subsea robots to help do challenging jobs underwater. We did that diversification and pivot along the way, all while staying within our means. Most people like do these big series raises. We did raise money along the way, but we stayed within our means. We were frugal. I still remember having a debate with Jess. Can we afford this $60 overhead projector? Right? Like these are the conversations when it is
paper cutter.
And the paper cutter. Like if you're arguing over whether you can buy a paper cutter, now you know you're real, and you are going to make sure that you stay within your means and don't overextend yourself and survive, because you're going to make a mistake along the way. We made plenty of them, and there's not enough time to go over all of them, but we made a lot of mistakes, but it was because we stayed within our means and we listened. We could pivot and adjust and had enough wherewithal to do those pivots along the way. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Oh, you're doing great.
Oh.
You're doing great.
Yeah, but let me say this, and then I will hand it over to you, because I know that this is an area where I think you really contributed the most to our success. Is in 2018, I think the biggest thing what we did was realize that it isn't the technology that makes this company. You have to be solving a customer need, but the key ingredient, the thing that made us go from surviving to thriving, we went from 50 people to over 100 people during COVID in a year and a half. What created that growth? What created that acceleration was one thing, people. The strength of a company is its people. We decided to focus on people and focus on building our culture, because if you take care of all your people, success is just a byproduct. So that was, I think, our biggest. So maybe I'll let you elaborate on that.
Sure. So I would say that probably culture and people were important to us all along the way.
That's right.
Right. But we had an epiphany, really. Like 2016, 17, 18, we revisited our core values within our organization. We looked at what we had written on a poster in our lobby that were our core values, and we decided, are we really living these? Are these something that we live and breathe every day? Are these something that our employees all understand and know about? How can we do a better job at making our culture strong, because we care about our people? And I do think that my background, this is when my Penn State degree in employee relations came into play. Like I was able to tap into that because of what I really cared about people. My reason for coming to work every day was not to do the world's greatest marketing for RE Squared, because it was one of the hardest marketing jobs I ever had. We had all these projects and products that we weren't allowed to talk about. We were building robots for other companies that we weren't allowed to talk about.
Let alone the name.
I always say that if you would have met me a year earlier, we would have never had a superscript in our name, but it was a year too late, and so we became RE Squared. And I had to live with it as a marketing person. But I was really tapping into that employee relations and human resources side of the hat that I wore at RE Squared, and wanted to make RE Squared a place where people could come every day and be excited about their work, right? I call it Monday morning joy, sort of like a phrase that I've coined for myself, that I wanted to create this Monday morning joy for people. So on Sunday night, when they're thinking about going to work the next day, it wasn't like, oh, I can't believe I have to go there, right? Like dreading coming to work. I wanted them to be excited about it. I wanted them to get up on Monday morning and just come right in. And so we really revamped our core values. We involved all of our employees in revamping our core values. We rolled it out through all of our onboarding. Every time we brought somebody in, we shared our core values. Every company presentation we did, every monthly meeting, we started with our core values. We really drove it home that we cared about our people, that it was trust and integrity. And at first it was Positivity, and then we changed that because toxic positivity became a thing, and we were no longer allowed to be positive. We had to be solution oriented.
Yeah.
So we lived by these words, and everyone did. We created a bookmark that everyone hung on their monitor, and it was just our mantra. And we created an internal award where every month the people's peers would vote on a winner, and what a winner of the core values award, and what value the person was, just exemplifying within their work. And it was a huge game changer, right? We always knew we cared about people, but we didn't incorporate it into our everyday until we made that big change. And I think that really contributed to our success. It contributed to our growth. And people would say, like in interviews, like, I've heard really good things about your culture, but I don't really buy it. I'm like, well, come and see for yourself, right? Like, we're offering you a job now. Like, if you want to take the job, come and see how it is. And they would come back to me 2 or 3 months later and be like, I didn't believe it, but it really is a great place to work. I'm like, okay, good, thanks. But if you have any input on how we can make it better, let me know, right? That was important to us. We were not authoritarian leaders, right? We were servant leaders. We cared about people. And I think that really contributed to our success.
Yeah. Yeah, so honestly, you would think that the people element is just, it can be easily discounted, but I am telling you, I don't think it's coincidence that the second we amplified people first, that's where people would start bending over backwards, and everyone was an owner in the company, right? It was a family, right? Everyone had stock options. This was our company, not Jess and Jorgen's company. This became our company. And when it's your company and you feel like it's your company, the way you act is different, right? And it paid off, right? And we miss it. Right, we do miss it.
We don't know what to do with ourselves.
Yeah, we don't know what to do with ourselves.
I'm totally lost.
But it was a fun experience, and if there's any lessons learned, I'll stop talking and we'll get to questions. But if there's any lessons learned, it's one: listen to your customer and make sure you are solving a problem that needs to be solved. Otherwise, go back to the drawing board until you get to that point. Do a lot of customer discovery, have a lot of interviews, and talk to make sure that you are doing what needs to be done. Number one, after you figure that out, get the right people. Treat the people with respect. Get them excited. We had the dumpiest building in Pittsburgh. People loved coming into work. Hey, good news. You remember that IKEA desk? Well, we put it in the kitchenette that's really cramped, and now there's a couple snacks on it. It was nothing to look. You didn't want to write home about this. It didn't matter because we cared about the people, and it was the relationships and the way you interact with people, giving people with respect and trusting them to do their job, empowering them to own things. That's what people care about. They don't care about a building. And it was that people is what made that place go. Mm-hmm. And, so those are my 2 takeaways, right? Listen and take care of people. Do you have any other, or is that it?
Those are good. Those are really good. I mean, I could come up with some more, but
yeah, okay.
I think being humble is a big one.
We're going to touch on that one. That's right.
Well, I was just going to say, as leaders, being a humble leader is, I think, something that's maybe it's not talked about that often in business. I think often when you think of this C-level executives or people that start companies and grow them to, 100 plus people and end up getting acquired and all of that, you don't think of those as necessarily humble people. But we find that when you're humble and you go into any situation, whether it's with a customer, an employee, or a partner, you walk in and you look to them. What can you learn from them? There's so much to learn from other people. We don't have all the answers. So I think being humble is a good one.
All right, that's our intro.
Sure.
Okay, so our first question is, what inspired you to go into the field of robotics specifically?
All right, I'll take that one. Jess gave me the look. All right. Honestly, it was Plan B. Plan A was, it was 1980s. I was watching Top Gun. I was like a teenager. I was going to be a fighter, pilot. Then, the movie The Right Stuff. I was going to be an astronaut. Yeah, that didn't work out. So what's the next coolest thing when you're 18 years old? Robots, right? Okay, so let's go. So that's what inspired me. But I have to say Star Wars had that influence, right? It was there, no one's cooler than R2-D2. It's my ringtone on my phone. That was compelling as well. I don't know. Jess, do you have anything to add on that one?
I never in a million years thought I would work in robotics. And then I ended up doing it for 20 years. And it was fascinating and amazing. And the people were awesome. And I'm grateful that I had that opportunity. And I had that opportunity because of you. Thank you.
So, okay, so were you intent on entering into the field of robotics from the start of college, high school, even before that? Or did it come after your education? Was it like a last-minute decision?
There were no robotics in high school. I had the Apple IIe in the computer lab, right? So there wasn't a lot when I was graduating high school. There was no FIRST robotics or Lego leagues or no. So it was, you showed up, and there were very few universities that were working on robotics, and Carnegie Mellon was one of them. And the reason that I was drawn there is because it was a more applied, once again, I'm not that academic, I'm not in the classroom getting good grades, that was not me. I'm the hands-on, learn as you go. And they had these big robots. They had Ambler, which was going to go to Mars. How they were going to get it there, I have no idea. But they had Nav Lab, which was the first van to drive across America autonomously. There was all this cool stuff, and they were pioneers. And so it was landing at CMU is what really initiated, hey, this is what I think I want to do.
What sorts of what are all the different kinds of robots that you guys work on, and what niche or purpose do they like to fill?
You want that one?
No, you got it. You're good.
Well, like I said, we pivoted a lot. So we worked on many different robots. We did focus in on mobile manipulation, but we had developed over 24 different robotic arm designs for different markets. Well, the early adopter was defense for that bomb squad, but then it moved into other areas within defense, like civil engineering, repairing runways, going subsea to deal with threats there. But then we moved into commercial. That's where we really started taking off. We were installing solar panels and solar fields autonomously. We were doing baggage handling autonomously, servicing aircraft. The plane pulls up to the gate, and you see all that flurry of activity, bags, water service, lavatory, wheel chalks. That's what we were automating. We also got into, I can't talk about the details, it's still not public, but we were working on surgical robotic arms to help in the OR. So we worked on multiple different markets because, as I said, the path to the goal is never a straight line. It was pivot, listening where is the greatest need from our customers. And in the end, we were in 4 distinct markets, and had good traction at the time of acquisition.
So I know you mentioned robotics wasn't a huge field whenever you were in high school and college. So what's the hardships or challenges you faced when trying to develop your career in robotics?
How about you? What hardships did you face?
I don't like math.
There were few mentors. There was few examples that you could lean on to. Now, when RE Squared started, there was a handful of us. There are now over 100 robotics companies in Pittsburgh alone, right? It's been exponential growth. Most of those have come since like 2014. And why are there getting more and more? Because there's examples. There are mentors and advisors out there that can help and guide you and advise you. There wasn't anything like that when we started. We had to fall on our face multiple times, right? And figure out, well, that's not what you do, because we didn't know any better. So that was by far the biggest challenge of getting a robotics business going up and running. And the other thing about robotics is it's really hard because at any given moment, you have to have the perfect balance of mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, software engineering, industrial design. That's just to get the thing operation. Now you want to sell it. Oh, now you need marketing. You need business development. Oh, you need a strong operations. You need supply chain. Then you get into manufacturing. It's really hard to balance all the elements of a robotics business at any given moment. So now there are examples out there, and there's those advisors. So if anyone's going into robotics, find a mentor, find an advisor to help guide you on that journey.
And with RE Squared Robotics, can you detail what exactly made this company so successful?
That's so nice of you. I think they're so, like we mentioned in our intro, first and foremost, it was the people. The people that we hired that worked for us over time were really incredible people. And one of the things that we did, like I mentioned with our core values, is that we started to apply our core values to our hiring process. So if you interview for a robotics company and you're interviewing for a technical position, most likely you're going to go through a really challenging battery of technical questions, technical tests, right? And you're sitting across the room from some experts that could possibly be your boss. It's really intimidating, right? We always saved those for last, and we always did a day of behavioral interviews first, because we wanted to make sure that whoever we're interviewing, their personalities, that they would fit well with our team, and that they would fit well with the culture of our company, and that they could, we saw the positivity in them, and all the things that we thought were important as a company. And we often hired people who just nailed the behavioral interview and maybe didn't quite nail the technical. But we knew that if they have the right attitude and aptitude, they're going to get there, right? We really believed in mentoring our engineers too, so that they always had someone that was going to be working with them to make sure to get them up to speed. But if they came in with a bad attitude, or they came in with attitude that they knew more than everybody else in the room, you knew it wasn't going to work out. There would be some kind of toxicity that was going to affect the whole team. And so I think that really one of the keys to success at RE Squared was our people and our process for bringing people in.
Yeah, I'll add one thing. I still remember, I don't know, in the 20-teens, this one kid came in, he had a 2.4 GPA, and he was being instantly discounted by a lot of the tech folks. The nicest person. He ended up being our best PCB designer we ever had. because he fit with our culture. He was encouraged and nurtured and given the opportunity and empowered. And because we gave him that chance, and it was just a good fit, it worked, right? And the grades didn't matter. You know, I keep coming back to that, but you know, to me, it's about Jess hit it.
Yeah,
Attitude and aptitude.
Yeah, like Mark Lewis.
Oh yeah. You give that example.
We'll give you back the mic in a second.
Yeah.
So we had our chief scientist was this brilliant man who worked for he was one of the first 3 employees that Jorgen hired, and he was with the company until the last day. And he did not have a bachelor's degree. He had a technical degree from one of the local technical schools, and had such a brilliant mind that he was responsible for the majority of the designs of our robotic arms throughout the entire history of our company. We didn't pass over someone like that because they didn't have the piece of paper, right? They just had incredible attitude and aptitude and technical skill like you've never seen. And then sort of the antithesis of that, early on, probably our 8th or 9th hire was a young guy just out of college who about 2 weeks into his tenure with us came into our office. Jorgen and I shared an office, and sat down and said, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, is everything okay? He's like, yeah, I just don't think you know what you're doing. And I'm like, it's like, to both of us, like, I just don't think the 2 of you know what you're doing. I would like a copy of your business plan. Like, he just went off on the 2 of us, and I thought, okay, I don't think this is gonna work out. Not that I didn't want his input, right? But the way he approached us, it was just so like the antithesis of like the way we welcomed people into the organization. It was very strange. And so, then the next week he made our only female engineer cry, and then he was done. So yeah, that was how that worked out. I hope he's not watching this on YouTube.
And we probably didn't know what we were doing at that point either.
No, we probably
but,
didn't.
You know, that's.
Yeah, but the attitude.
So what do you think are some of the best kinds of skills and abilities to have as an entrepreneur?
I'm gonna let you start.
I have to laugh because I had a whole presentation and slides done, and this was like one of the slides, like all of these great traits you can have as an entrepreneur, and Jorgen's like, that's a little much. And I'm like, okay, we'll just not do a presentation at all. But I can tell you, because I just think there's a term that I use called entrepreneurial leadership, and it's the skills that are, a lot of them are soft skills, like I said, being humble, being open, being transparent, not having a closed door meetings all the time where your employees are wondering what's going on, being very open, communicating on a regular basis about how the company is doing, even if it's not doing well. I think that those are really key. I think caring about your people and listening to your people and listening to your customers, I think those are all really important. You probably have a list too.
That was pretty comprehensive.
Okay.
And last question, and then we'll open it up to the audience if they have any. If you were to start your company all over again, what is one thing you would do just that code?
Make the superscript bigger on the logo.
I was going to say no superscript in the logo. I think we learned so much over 20 years. That young person that came into our office and questioned what we knew was, I'm not going to say that he was wrong, right? But it hurt a little. It made us question things. And I look back and, sometimes I thank him for that. But I feel like we learned so much in 20 years that if we were to go back now or if we were to start something new, we would put the people first thing at the top of our list and live it from day one. What would you do?
Yeah, that's right. First, it goes back to the 2 lessons learned, right? Make sure you have a lock on the problem you are solving. Mm-hmm. Check. Get that done. Once you're there, don't worry about the technology or the operations or patents or anything. That's all a byproduct of people. So it would be getting the right people that work well together. And oftentimes it could be a B player and a C player, and you don't have. How many people have seen sports teams where you try to put all the superstars on one team and it never works out, right? you need a team that works well and meshes well together. And they don't have to all be superstars. They need to be just a cohesive unit that's a well-greased machine that you give them what they need, you support them, you empower them, and you get out of their way, and it just all works out. And that was the biggest lesson learned that we would apply from day one if we were to do it over again.
Yeah, thank you. Does anyone in the audience have any questions? Okay, should I have in the back? Good try.
Yep. I feel like my question kind of goes well with what you were just talking about. But yeah, so kind of a two-footer. One is, what are some of the specifics of how you put people first? So you mentioned things like core values and stuff, but if you could like maybe go into some of the things that like really made your business first, is like I heard about it, from other people too, but it's a great place to work. So like, what are some of the ways that you accomplish that? And then the second one is, I'm sure a lot of companies start out with that as their goal, but I think it's difficult at times. So were there times that it was also hard to put people first, and how did you fight against that?
Excuse me.
All right, I'll give a couple examples. One, we met and presented to the company monthly. Here's what's going on. Here's our P&L. Here's our finances. Here's the status of every project we're working on. We're on budget, on schedule, the customer's happy, blah, blah, blah. Full transparency at all times, not hiding in anything, okay? I respect you as a member of this company, and you're gonna hear the truth at all times. That's one example. Two, we had suggestion boxes that you could either, we encourage people to go to their direct supervisor if they had an idea. We had an anonymous suggestion box. People used it all the time. It could be anything from, boy, I really want those LaCroix back in the fridge, to, oh, I have a real problem with the way that we're handling, X, right? It could be a really serious issue, or it could be something, inane. No matter what it was, we brought it to the forefront, and we listed it and prioritized it. And we said, not just we hear you, and now here's what we're going to do about it, right? We hear you that this is a problem. You don't feel like you have an understanding of how to grow in your career. Oh, okay, well, we're going to create very crystal clear levels of progression. You're an engineer 1, engineer 2, engineer 3, senior engineer, lead senior engineer, principal engineer. And what does it mean to go from here to here to here to here to here? That's just one example. People wanted that structure, wanted clarity on how to advance their career within our business, right? We took it very seriously. We dealt with it. I think another example is we made sure that we were a welcoming organization, right? We went out of our way to make that happen. We wanted to make sure we had a very diverse workforce, right? You have to go out of your way. You have to be proactive, not reactive. If you just put out a job post, you get who you get, right? You have to be proactive. I need to go speak to the women engineering group. I need to go talk to the NSBE chapter and let everyone know about what we're doing. We had to relook at our job descriptions. I learned, here's another suggestion that came in. We need to change our job descriptions. I had no idea as a white male that our job description was bogus. It only appealed to other white males. Because what I found out, I was educated by one of my employees that, oh, if you say you need to have this, 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 and this, and this, a white male will say, I got 3 of those, I'm good, I'm applying. Whereas a female engineer will say, well, I only have 3 of those, I guess I can't apply, right? There's a different response, right? I had no idea, right? So these are things that you learn over time by being open and welcoming to learn, hey, don't put work hard, play hard in your job description. That doesn't appeal to everyone. what you want to do is make it clear that, oh, we have, a very open environment where you can be yourself and you can, have flexible hours. That's another example. Core hours, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Can I explain why we have core hours, though?
Yes.
So this is one of the beautiful things about being an entrepreneur is you get to make the rules for your business, right? If you're the founder or you're someone who is, part of the team that's making the rules early on, and you're a young guy starting a business who doesn't have any reason to wake up in the morning before, 9:30 a.m., you make your working hours 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and you call those your core hours. And you say, okay, you can come in at 10 and leave at 6, or you can come in at 8 and leave at 4, or any variation there, but the core hours are between 10 and 4. And the whole reason was because Jorgen was a night owl and could never wake up. And we started our family late. We have 2 beautiful sons. We adopted our first son in 2009, and we had been in the business for 8 years at that point, or you had been in the business for 8 years at that point, and still staying up late, going out to dinner every night, hitting Taj Mahal and McKnight Road on the way home, staying there until they closed, and and then not being able to wake up. And that was the habit that we got in. And so when you create the hours for your company as an entrepreneur, you do it based on your own life. And we found that there are a lot of other engineers that appreciated that too, like to not have to walk in that door until 10 a.m. and knowing that they were going to stick around until 6 was cool.
Yeah, the moms who had to drop off their kids.
If there were parents that wanted to leave by 4 o'clock so they could be home, it worked out.
I had a question.
I think one unique thing about your story that really resonated with me was talking about, like, I'm thinking you guys just the unknown, the fear of the unknown that was there. You're in uncharted waters, you're navigating it too, and then all of a sudden everyone starts buying land around you, and now everyone's in this landscape along with you. Where do you think the field is now? Where, what would be that next move looking into really it hasn't been navigated yet? If that makes sense. Where in the field, what's that next thing that not a lot of people are looking into, or is just that risk taking? What's that? Because I think about our kids here at South Fayette, and they are exposed to a lot of robotics. We have a lot of opportunities and experiences in robotics that you said you didn't have. So what's it going to be like for them, having all this around them? What's that next move, that uncharted waters for them?
I'll let you take that, because you're dealing with that right now. Just in your role,
Yeah, so there's still a lot to be done in robotics, right? We are just the tip of the iceberg. Everyone thinks that because robotics have been in factories for decades that we got a lock on this. Where we are now is we've moved outside the factory floor, but we're still industrial, right? We're still in that industrial phase where you have to have a controlled environment and skilled workers in order for robotics to truly be viable. Where we haven't gotten to yet, and maybe with all the AI, with ChatGPT and all the generative AI that's coming about, it's hopefully going to enable robotics in the public setting, right? Beyond the Roomba, because the worst that happens is you stub your toe, right? But anything beyond that, because of societal issues, we are a very litigious society. Someone gets hurt, right? Look at all the self-driving cars, and all it takes is one accident, and that it can really affect that company's ability to move their product forward and into the market. So I think figuring out how to apply AI, there's still going to be electromechanical, but figuring out how to apply generative AI into hardware solutions is going to be where the next generation has to take us, because and I don't know how to do it. Anything else you want to add?
I certainly don't know how to do it. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
So I have so many questions, but I did want to say that it truly comes forward that you're very genuine about your care for people, and you actually care for each other. It's pretty clear that very much caring for each other. I guess the question I had that has nothing to do with the technology, although I have many questions about technology, is that it seems like you loved this business, and yet you had the acquisition event, which I'm sure is somewhat bittersweet if you love this business. And so I kind of would love to hear the reasons why you decided to go ahead with the acquisition, and maybe did some of that play into the benefits that it would give to the shareholders that would be employees in their lives and these kind of things. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
All right, this is a hard question. Good job.
Can I say one quick thing
Yeah,
though?
yeah.
I'm just going to say one quick thing and then let Jorgen take this. I love that you used the word bittersweet, because my 10-year-old, at the time of the acquisition, he was 8, 9, I don't know, he was 8. And he used that exact word. He said, like it's happy sad. It's happy sad, Mom. I'm like, you're right, it is happy sad. So bittersweet is the perfect word to use.
Yeah, so first, it all stems back to robotics is really hard. It is really hard to run a successful robotics business, especially in new markets. Doing, inside the factory floor, it's just a commodity market now, and people are just trying to jockey for market share. We were in blue ocean creating new applications, and we didn't really have a lot of funding. So we bootstrapped. We took a small Series A in 2014 and a Series A extension in 2017, $3.75 million in total. That's not a lot of money for a capital-intensive robotics business. When we started getting all this traction in commercial, solar construction, surgical robotics, airport automation. We needed more capital to grow. We had all the customers lined up. We knew the only way we could grow, though, was to get more capital. And there was only 2 ways to do that. We either went and did a Series B raise, raised $25, $30 million, or through an acquisition, right? And the acquisition was presented to us where, hey, not only are we going to be acquired and we're going to get recognition and value of the stock, and all the employees got, because everyone was an owner of that company and had stock options, everyone got some value for that acquisition. Plus, there was enough cash on the other side to allow us to execute on our plan, right? That is the information we had going into, should we do this acquisition or not? Hindsight's 2020, and I wish everyone well, right? Do we miss that vibe, that company that we built, over 20 years? Yep, we do,
Yep.
right? It was part of our DNA. It was part of every dinner conversation. It was who we were, right?
Sorry, I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Sorry.
She's like, do I need tissues? I'm like, no, why would you need tissues?
You know me,
Yeah,
I always need tissues.
Yeah. We made the decision at the time because also we had to exit eventually. The second we took that Series A in 2014, that started the clock, right? VCs want their return. They want their return. Plus, we had to pay 8% interest on the original money. The terms are usually not favorable unless you exit quickly, right? So every year that went by, we had to pay interest on that money on top of whatever the differential is on an acquisition. So we knew we had to exit eventually. At the time, everything seemed like that's the correct thing to do. We don't regret the decision we made at that time. and despite, where things have gone, what I feel proud about, and I know Jess does too, is the impact that we had on the lives of the people that were at that company. Some of them were there getting 15-year service awards. No one ever left. Our turnover rate was single percentage, right? You were like, what do you mean single percentage? Because it was such a great place to work. And I have no regrets about that. And those people who are no longer with the company are carrying that forward wherever they go. And I want that trickle effect of show people what a company should be like and how you treat people and what work should be. And that's happening. And even some of our former employees are starting up their own businesses, right? And things are going to carry forward. It's not as RE squared robotics, that's gone. And that's okay. But what we created is going to carry forward just in a lot more branches than we originally thought.
Can I share a little story?
Yeah.
Okay, I pulled myself together. No, but one of the things that Jorgen mentioned there is all of our employees, the Pittsburgh office was closed. All of our employees had to find new employment, right? And that just happened this past year. So it was not at the time of the acquisition. At the time of the acquisition, we all stayed. But as people left and joined other companies, they started implementing some of the things that we did within RE Squared that were dear to us. And I saw on LinkedIn last week, and I think I probably cried then too, I saw on LinkedIn that there's a robotics company in Pittsburgh who they now have maybe, 15 former RE Squared employees. And my right-hand person in marketing, there were two of us in our marketing department the entire, she joined in 2015, so for the last five or 6 years she was there. She went and joined this other company, and they put a post on LinkedIn last week that was announcing their first Core Values Award winners. They implemented the entire process. They created their own core values. They created a process around it. They made, the core values winner gets a shirt that has core values winner on the arm, and they did it all. They did exactly what we did, and I thought that is a testament to what we built. It's beautiful, and that, to me, that's success right there.
Okay, we'll take one more question.
Yep.
And we'll stick around at the end if you have it. We're here for it.
So this is truly very inspiring, pretty impressive. Wow. And when you talked about the superstars on the team, that reminded me of the Lakers when they had Shaq and Kobe, your Kobe, and they had Karl Malone and Gary Payton. They went to the NBA Finals. They lost to the Pistons. Pistons were fast, and Lakers were old. And when you were talking, it reminded me of one thing, which again is very interesting for both of you. So you come from Penn State, Jess. So you're from CMU, and I'm in academia. And I'm wondering, Google, when they came out in the 90s and all the tech, everybody talked about the work culture, food, party type, creativity. And then when I looked at the educational institutions, very stoic. This is how it's done: curriculum, exams, in and out, discipline, right? It's very different. So looking back, so my question is actually not tech related, but we have some students here, of course you're in some today. Looking back at your own educational institution and that educational experience that you had, what can you, from all the things that you've done with core values and how you treated people, how can our educational institutions change the mindset so that the students don't have to find a company like yours, that 2.4 student, to then find out, oh gosh, I have a lot more talent than me. How can we do that for students rather than having to find someone like you that's something different?
That is a great question, and one, I don't know if I have the answer. Just being open, but a lot of it's, how do you teach that? at a young age, right? How do you convey that earlier in life, and versus hoping that you just land at the right company? And a lot of it's, I wonder if there could be, we're so focused on the academics in school, which is very important, don't get me wrong. You need that foundation. But the soft skills are just as important. Teaching empathy, teaching inclusion, teaching these key traits is something we don't typically teach in a school. And I wonder if there's an opportunity to introduce that in some way. That's pretty thought-provoking, and I don't know if you have any thoughts or ideas.
Well, I'll say, I think we homeschool our kids first. I'll just say that. And we have our oldest is a freshman in high school. And I think our willingness, and I never thought in a million years we would homeschool our children, but then during the pandemic, anxiety over remote learning and things were sinking into our kids, and we thought, you know what, let's just find our own path, right? Let's just do our own thing. And it stuck, and we've been doing it ever since. And it gives us a way of looking at education that we never thought we would look at before, and allowing our kids to explore things that they're passionate about and seeing if that can help direct their path. So maybe I feel like there's so much emphasis on, in high school, when I look back at it, AP classes and achievement and doing well and getting into the college that you want to. And there's so much pressure on kids to be able to have at least some point in your day where you say, what do you really love? What could you do with your time today? You have an hour of time to explore your passion, right? Our 15-year-old has some very interesting passions that are really hard to map to academic classes. He and I had a long talk today because he's in 9th grade, and I'm like, well, we're supposed to be doing geography, world geography, and some history, but all you want to do is analyze the stock market. So maybe we'll call 9th grade social studies economics this year, and let's try to map it right for you, because if I tell him we're going to do geography, we'll do it, and he'll roll his eyes through it, and he'll struggle, and he's not passionate about it. But as soon as we start talking of it, like I said to him today, I think we could map your social studies class this year to economics. Let's talk about the stock market. Why do some stocks do well? What drives a stock to do well? And he's like, the company's revenue? I'm like, yeah, okay, check mark. You know what you're talking about, right? So he has these really deep passions, but they're really hard to map. But I don't want to discount those because I think they could be his future. So finding time within your day, your academic day, to dedicate to things that you love, that passion really shines through. And then when you leave school and you want to follow that either into college or not, your love of that will be apparent and obvious to whoever you're talking to that's hiring for a position like that.
All right, we only have time for 20 more questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Pedersens.
Thank you.
And I just want to say, all the things that you hit on, that's the reason why I have a job. Because I am literally the director of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And one of the things that we do talk about often is, in this very room, we had a TED Talk, and it was from 2.3 to the DOC. Because I was that student. Dr. Mitchell was here. Dr. Mitchell and I, we talk to the students about that all the time. Our grades weren't the best in high school. That's not the most important thing. What we talk about, my wife is here, the best Dr. Herring, I'm a mediocre doctor now. But we talk about this all the time. The things you learn in school, anybody can learn for the most part. But the things you learn from your lived experiences, you definitely have to live in order to understand them. And so when we go places and we go experience different places, like the South Alleghenies and the Seneca Valleys, and you see how different kids live, and you see somebody who comes from a space like us, and you guys growing up here in South Fayette, I tell the kids all the time, and Dr. Mitchell and I, that when we learn what you learn, we're going to beat you. And the reason why is because You have to live how we live to understand what we know. So the best way to be able to understand it and get through that and be able to compete once we learn what you learn is to befriend us. And that goes back to that diversity of thought, that diversity of ability, that diversity of stuff. So you guys killed it. I am like, I want to come work for RH Squared. Dr. Bauer and I are back here talking about that right now, but we have a lot of the philosophies right here in South Fayette. So we're really excited that you came just really just not knowing that you were going to hone in on those, but thank you. But I think